everyone, and welcome to our Prestige PEO webinar series. My name is Shannon Shaw. I am Operations Supervisor at Prestige PEO and your host this morning. Today, we will be reviewing the differences between FSA and HSA accounts. I am joined by Brady Moss of Optum Financial. Our webinar viewers are automatically muted, but we encourage you to utilize the chat feature for any questions you may have, and we will address them at the end of the webinar if time allows. If your question is not answered, we will follow up with you shortly after the webinar concludes. The webinar is also being recorded and will be posted on prestigepeo.com/webinars so that you can refer to it at any time. And now we'll get started with the webinar. Welcome, Brady.
Thanks, Shannon. My name is Brady Moss. I am a relationship executive with Optum Financial. I've been with Optum for roughly 12 years, all working in the financial services side of things with Optum. I am a primary point of contact when it comes to your relationship between Optum and Prestige PEO. And so generally, if there is a significant question or concern relating to your account, it eventually bubbles up to me. I will be walking through some of your benefit options as it comes to the spending accounts between FSAs and HSAs today. On a side note, personally, as I mentioned, I've been with Optum for about 12 years. I enjoy home improvement projects, traveling, spending time with friends and family, and I am absolutely obsessed with my 3 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. On today's agenda, we're going to be learning about what is an FSA, 3 types of FSAs, sample eligible expenses, contribution limits, how much you can save, both in your paycheck as well as on your expenses as well, how you can access your account, how to use your FSA to pay for qualified medical expenses, and some key dates that are very important as it comes to an FSA. On the HSA side of things, we're going to learn the difference between what an FSA and an HSA is, how an HSA helps you save money as well, from a tax perspective, HSA savings in action. So we'll give you an example. We'll run through the contribution limits and what's covered under an HSA, how much you can contribute each year, and how to know if you're eligible for an HSA. Should you build up a large enough balance, you do have some investment options. So we'll be talking about those a little bit. And we will talk about how investments can help you grow your HSA for future, including into retirement, and then how you would go about accessing your account. All right, so for those of you that are not necessarily familiar with Optum Financial, Optum is part of United Health Group. We are their services side of the house. United Health Group is comprised of 3 separate companies. It is United Health Group, which is our parent company, and we also have United Healthcare and Optum. Our healthcare side handles more of the medical insurance and health-related side of things, and Optum is our services side. As I mentioned, we do offer a wide range of accounts. Through that, if you are in an HSA, we do have multiple options for you for investments. We do offer significant abilities for you to access educational resources such as webinars, videos, courses, flyers, and webinars, as well as digital tools that are available 24/7, such as the website. So let's go ahead and start with FSAs today. So what is an FSA? An FSA is a flexible spending account that allows you to use pre-tax dollars to pay for qualified medical expenses. The dollars that you contribute are pre-tax, so they do reduce your taxable income. They cover eligible medical expenses, such as we'll go through this in greater detail later, but such as prescriptions, co-pays, things along those lines. And this is a use it or lose it account, and so the money in your account does need to be used by the end of your plan year. In some cases, some plans do allow for a carryover of dollars from one year to another up to the IRS limits. that is something that Prestige does offer. There are 3 types of flexible spending accounts. The first is a healthcare account, which will allow you to pay for medical, dental, vision, prescription, and other covered over-the-counter expenses. There's a limited purpose FSA, which is offered alongside an HSA. So if you are in a high deductible health plan and have a health savings account, you can open a limited purpose FSA, which would help you pay for dental and vision expenses. And the third type would be a dependent care account, which allows you to use pre-tax dollars to pay for dependent care services incurred while you work. So think daycare expenses. Some eligible expenses that are covered by an FSA would be acupuncture, anesthesia, bandages, a blood pressure monitor, chiropractic care, co-payments, contact lenses, deductibles, just to name a few. The limited purpose, as I mentioned, is more for dental and vision expenses. So let's say you have to get a filling or a crown, or let's say you are have a child going into braces or currently in braces, you would be able to use a limited purpose to pay for those expenses using pre-tax dollars as well. And then for dependent care, after-school programs, babysitting, childcare, nanny, preschool, sick childcare, summer camps. If you have elderly parents that you are financially responsible for and dependent on you, elder care and senior daycare would be eligible for those as well. Contribution limits are the same for both healthcare and limited purpose FSAs. The 2024 limit is going to be $3,200 as an individual, and for dependent care, that is $5,000. For couples filing jointly or a single parent, $2,500 per year per parent filing separately. So here's just an example of how you would be able to go about saving with an FSA. So as I mentioned, the dollars that go into an FSA are pre-tax dollars. So we'll talk about my friend Mike here. So assume Mike earns $55,000 a year and contributes $2,000 to his FSA. So annually he makes $55,000, pre-tax contribution $2,000, taxable income is reduced to $53,000. He then pays $15,715 in taxes and Social Security taxes. After-tax dollars spent on eligible expenses that would be covered by an FSA, he does not exceed that $2,000. And so that leaves his spendable income at $37,286. This gives him a tax savings of $593, which is pretty significant. If he were to have the exact same situation but not contribute to an FSA pre-tax and instead paid for those expenses out of pocket, his spendable income reduces to $36,693 with $0 in tax savings. So you can definitely see the power when it comes to saving with a flexible spending account. You know, my thing that I tell people is if you know you have expenses each year, so whether it's, you know, I get a prescription or I go to the dentist and I typically have to get a filling, you know, think about those types of expenses on an annual basis and deduct at least what you know you have in expenses that you have come up in a typical year. Something even as simple as sunscreen is eligible under an FSA or an HSA. And so if you know that you're buying sunscreen, you know, save for that. Think about those things ahead of time. And so this is just a good example of where you can save on some tax dollars. In reference to how you would access your account, we do offer 3 ways for you to access the account. So our online portal at optumfinancial.com is available for you to access your account, file claims, view your claims activity, view eligible expenses, and access educational materials. The mobile app is available as well. Again, it's Optum Financial is the name of the mobile app. And then we do also offer you a payment card to allow for you to pay for your expenses right up front. This keeps you from having to pay out of pocket and then reimburse. However, should that come up, you do have the ability to reimburse yourself both online and through the mobile app. In reference to how can I use my FSA to pay for qualified medical expenses, as I mentioned, with a payment card, it allows you to pay for healthcare services at the point of care. Mobile or online, you can complete an interactive claim form online, snap a picture of your documents, and quickly upload them either online or through the mobile app. And then, of course, we do offer the ability to file a manual claim using paper that can be sent through the U.S. mail or faxed to us as well. Some common questions with FSA is, when can I request reimbursement? So you can request reimbursement as soon as you have incurred the expense. So if you know, or excuse me, if you have incurred an expense and you paid out of pocket for it, you can request for a reimbursement of that expense. We will require documentation that shows the date of service, dollar amount paid for your expense, who your provider was, who the patient was, and the service that was performed. A lot of people do think that that a credit card receipt is sufficient, and it unfortunately is not. With the payment card, we can see that you had an expense, but we can't tell what was actually done when you paid for that expense. How will I be able to access my account funds? As I mentioned, you do have access to the payment card online or using the mobile app to access your funds. And then in reference to, will I have to submit documentation for card payments? So Prestige does everything that they can to help Optum auto-substantiate your claims. We do our best to identify those expenses through inventory control systems. So say, for example, you're at a national brand pharmacy. They have an inventory control system that will help you or help identify what your expenses are. If you have a copay, Prestige has shared copays with us, so we are able to automatically substantiate the copays. Think about expenses like at a dental or a vision office where they can perform services that are not necessarily eligible for expenses. So a good example would be, let's say you get a new pair of eyeglasses. It's very common for your eye care provider to sell you a warranty program should your glasses break. Unfortunately, the IRS does not deem that as an eligible expense. And so if you pay for that with your payment card, we likely will ask you for documentation just showing the breakdown of what was purchased. What we'll do is we will identify that and say, you know what, it looks like you bought a warranty program. That's not something that the IRS deems eligible. Please repay that expense, and you would then send a check back to Optum. Those dollars would then go back into your FSA to use on a different expense. We will, however, send you a notification generally within 7 days of your card swipe to let you know that if we need additional information to substantiate your claim. If you don't hear from us, generally that means that we're okay and that we have enough information to validate the expense for the IRS should we incur an audit. Some key dates to know about with an FSA. So if you were enrolled in the FSA last year, so in 2023, December 31st was the last day to have incurred expenses for the 2023 plan year. You do, however, have until March 31st of 2024 to submit expenses for reimbursement that you paid out of pocket in 2024, or excuse me, in 2023 rather. In April of 2024, once we have completed your run out of your claims, we will then roll up to $610 from the 2023 plan year for your healthcare FSA or limited purpose FSA into your 2024 plan. That is something that Optum does for you on behalf of Prestige. And then the last day to incur expenses, if you're in an FSA in 2024 or elect a FSA in 2024, December 31st, 2024 will be your last day to incur expenses in this plan year. So the important things to know are your deadlines, how you can spend your money, and places that you can use your dollars, such as the Optum store to get discounts for eligible expenses, such as, again, Band-Aids, sunscreen, things along those lines. You can visit optumfinancial.com to see additional information on that. Now let's learn about HSAs. Slightly different account, but also saves you money. So HSAs, or a health savings account, is a deposit account that lets you use pre-tax dollars to pay for qualified medical, dental, and vision expenses. So this sounds an awful lot like an FSA. However, an HSA is actually a savings account that you own. You are required to have a high deductible health plan enrollment in order to contribute to an HSA. The funds that go into an HSA can be funded by an employer, yourself, or others. So if your neighbor wants to give you $500 into your HSA, they are welcome to do that. Annual contribution limits are set by the IRS, giving you triple tax savings, so the dollars that go in, the dollars that come out for qualified medical expenses, and any earnings that you may have from interest or investment earnings are then they would come out tax-free. Earn interest with the option of an investment on the portion of the HSA once you meet a threshold, which is something that is set between Prestige and Optum. You will be prompted that you are eligible to move into investments once you have reached that threshold. And balances can be carried year to year, as this is an actual savings account. The dollars are real, they are yours. An HSA does help you save money for use either today or later. So think about this as if you are in a position to let those dollars build and save, or if you're very healthy, those dollars can be built up through time, and you can actually take those all the way into retirement for use of other expenses post-retirement. Now, how an HSA helps you save money. So deposits are exempt from income tax, so similar to an FSA. Savings grow income tax-free, and money is spent on qualified medical expenses that come out of the HSA income tax-free as well. So again, think those similar expenses to the FSA as well. So savings in action. This year you can deposit $3,000 into, actually this has gone up, but let's just use this as an example. So this year you deposit $3,000 into your HSA through payroll deductions. The pre-tax contributions, your federal and state income and FICA taxes for the year are $1,235. You earn interest on your account, and you draw $2,000 to pay for qualified medical expenses. Those expenses, the dollars that come out from that account, are tax-free on earnings and withdrawals for qualified expenses. And then you can carry that remaining $1,000 in HSA dollars into the next year. So there isn't a use it or lose it provision like there is with an FSA. So that is an advantage to this account. So similar tax savings, however, longer term account, you don't ever have to worry about the use it or lose it, or making sure that you are making the correct contribution as long as you have made a contribution to an HSA. If you don't incur any expenses, you are able to carry those dollars forward. You're even able to carry them from employer to employer. As I mentioned on what's covered under an HSA, so very similar to, or actually nearly identical to the FSA. So think acupuncture, ambulance, birth control, blood pressure monitors, chiropractic care, COBRA premiums post-tax, dentures, lab fees, hearing aids, flu shots, sunscreen, speech therapy. It's quite the large list. So the IRS does determine how much you can contribute to an HSA each year. In 2023, that limit was $3,850 as an individual, $7,750 as a family. You do have up until tax filing date, which is April 15th this year, in order to contribute up to that max if you had an HSA in 2023. The IRS has increased the maximum contributions in 2024 to $4,150 for an individual and $8,300 as a family. Now, if you're over the age of 55, but not yet enrolled in Medicare, you can fund up to $1,000 extra as a catch-up contribution. If your spouse is also covered by a high deductible health plan, they can also make a catch-up contribution of $1,000 into their own account. Now, how do I know if I'm eligible for an HSA? You must be covered by a high deductible health plan, as I mentioned, on the first day of the month. You have no other health coverage except for what is permitted by the IRS. You're not enrolled in Medicare, TRICARE, or TRICARE for Life. You haven't received VA benefits within the past 3 months except for preventative care. If you have a disability rating from the VA, this exclusion doesn't apply. You can't be claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. You do not have a healthcare flexible spending account or a health reimbursement arrangement through alternative plan designs. And then other restrictions and exceptions may also apply. We recommend that you consult with your tax or legal or financial advisor to discuss your personal circumstances. But this is definitely a great option for you since the limits are higher and you don't have to worry about the use it or lose it. Now, how do I know if I'm eligible for an HSA continued in reference to investments? So with investments, as I mentioned, once you hit a threshold, you'll be notified on the website that you're eligible to invest your funds for greater opportunities to earn. So think of this similar to your 401k. We do offer mutual funds with over 30 mutual funds that have been pre-selected. They have high Morningstar ratings and low expense ratios. And we also offer a digitally managed investment, which is an online investment support through Betterment. It's somewhat of a robo-advisor. You would fill out a brief questionnaire on your goals and risk profile. It has very low cost exchange traded funds and auto deposits and automated rebalancing similar to that of a 401k. So the optimal way to save for retirement is income tax-free withdrawals made to an HSA become a powerful retirement savings vehicle. So for those that I mentioned that you are in a position that you're able to just continue to save and pay out of pocket for your expenses without touching your HSA, you can build that balance similar to that of a 401k and use that in your retirement. Withdrawals from a 401k and IRA are taxed regardless of how the funds are used versus with a HSA, again, if the dollars are used for medical expenses, those continue to be tax-free. So similar to the example that I went through with the FSA, with an HSA, if you go into it and make pre-tax contributions, let's say you make a contribution of $3,000 a year into your HSA until retirement, assuming you use $1,500 a year for medical expenses and earn roughly 7% a year in interest and investments and reinvest all of your earnings, your savings really do add up. So if you've ever sat through a 401k presentation, they always reference if you start saving when you're younger, your savings will grow exponentially as you get older. So in our sample here, let's say you started contributing at age 25, again, contributing $3,000 a year and using $1,500 a year for medical expenses. Let's say you made that contribution at 25, that would grow to almost $293,000 by the time you turn 65. Further, if you did make this at a later time, so let's say you started making the contribution at age 55, same assumptions, those same dollars will grow to $20,305. So there's definitely an advantage to making a contribution earlier in your life. However, it is always a great time to start contributing to the HSA. And similar to the FSA, or identical to the FSA, you do have access to the online portal, the mobile app, and the payment card to help you pay for expenses easily or reimburse yourself for out-of-pocket expenses. So who owns my HSA? So that is a great question. It is a savings account, similar to a savings account that you would make with your own personal bank. It is your account, meaning that the dollars in it are yours. If you leave your employer, those dollars are yours, and it will stay with you until you have either exhausted the balance or transferred the dollars to another account. Do you need to keep your receipts? So Optum will not ask you for receipts when it comes to your HSAs. That is between you and the IRS. Should the IRS come knocking, they will ask you to validate your expenses that you have used dollars from your HSA to pay for. So keep your receipts and just hang on to those. Just make sure, again, they've got those 5 pieces. So data service, amount charged, provider's name, patient's name, and what was done. And then if you already have an HSA, can you open another? You absolutely can. Similar, again, to any other bank account, you can have as many of them as you want. You may incur expenses associated to each of them, so oftentimes it will be a better advantage to consolidate those. But definitely take a look at the details of each account if you do have an HSA already and then open one with Optum. It may end up being in your best interest to consolidate those onto a single, whatever one you're currently contributing to. So the HSA, there's a slightly different website for you to access in order to gain information on that. That is at optumbank.com versus the FSAs are managed on optumfinancial.com. We do have plenty of materials available on optumbank.com for other frequently asked questions. And Shannon, I believe this jumps to you in reference to where you can access information related to the benefits on Prestige's side.
Oh, thank you so much, Brady. This has been extremely informative. We did get a couple of questions, so I just want to pose those to you before we close out.
Absolutely.
Someone mentioned that they get a lot of questions about whether you need to use up the HRA before using a healthcare FSA. And is there a legal or practical reason to do that with different rollover rules?
So if the question is related to an HRA, that is not something that we are discussing on today's call. And so you would want to check with your financial advisor. If this should have been in reference to an HSA, you do not have to use up your funds from an HSA before you use an FSA, before you use FSA funds. So you do, however, have to use up all of your FSA funds prior to making a contribution into an HSA.
Thank you so much. It does seem probable that it was a typo. I appreciate that. Also,
Absolutely.
if the client has an HSA and a high deductible insurance plan, is that possible, or they're not eligible for the HSA because of the high deductible insurance plan?
The high deductible health plan is what makes you eligible for the HSA.
Oh, so it's actually the opposite.
Yep, exactly. So you have to be in a high deductible health plan in order to make contributions to an HSA. You can, however, have a high deductible health plan and go into an FSA and not an HSA. There are not as many benefits to doing that. We definitely recommend going into the HSA instead if you are in a high deductible health plan, just because the limits are higher, the dollars remain yours, and it is truly a greater opportunity to retain dollars and save.
Okay, thank you so much. Lastly, we have the question, can you advise on how an account that has been overfunded at the end of the year would be handled if it's now a new year? What does the employee have to do? What does the employer have to do?
So there's a couple things that you can do with that. So the IRS, so let me give a caveat. I am not a tax advisor. Always consult with your tax advisor to make sure that you are doing exactly what you should be doing for your particular situation. If you have overfunded, however, there are a few options that you have. So one thing would be that you can actually work with Optum to have those excess dollars returned to you. You would then report that on your taxes. Either way, you are responsible for reporting on it on your taxes if you have not reclaimed those funds and paid taxes on those. So it's something, again, you'll want to work with your tax advisor, but Optum can help you out If you give us a call into our call center, we can help with a overcontribution disbursement. So you essentially would fill out a form and we would issue a check to you. It's then reported on your tax forms from Optum that a disbursement has been made for a non-eligible expense due to overcontribution. You pay the taxes on those dollars based on your tax bracket, and it gets taken care of that way.
Well, thank you so much, Brady, for this valuable presentation, and thank you to everyone for joining us. You can view this webinar recording on our website by visiting prestigepeo.com/webinars, and you can also reach out to your benefits specialist for additional guidance. Be sure you check out our benefits center at prestigepeo.com/benefits-center for more information on Optum and other benefits offered by Prestige PEO. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter for current happenings at Prestige PEO and the latest information. Finally, remember to download our Prestige Go mobile app for access to your benefits information and support from your HR team members on the go. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.